So I just got to talk to Bridget Williams, who's the founder of social enterprise Bead and Proceed. She's incredibly passionate about the Sustainable Development Goals, and she uses her creativity to innovate sustainable change. She has held and currently holds many governance roles, which she'll share with us shortly. She is a global change maker, and I am absolutely honoured to have gotten to spend the time with her today. We talk about our constellation of people that we have around us, our cheerleaders, our challengers, and our champions. We talk about being put into boxes, about decision making, and being our authentic selves, and the absolute critical importance of that long term. I know you're going to love her. She is amazing. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for your time today, Bridget. We are so grateful, and even just meeting you when we got to catch up with you a couple of months ago, you are so inspiring to spend a bit of time with. So thank you very much, and I'm so excited for what people are going to get out of this today.
Oh, thank you, Daz. And likewise, it's amazing to hear your mahi, and hopefully there can be some pearls of wisdom that come out of this.
Yeah, definitely. Now I'm going to kick it off because we've just had a bit of a giggle about it, that one of our staff here at the Good Day Matrix used to work with you a long time ago at What Now. So take us back to Christchurch and young Bridget, and sort of take us through that journey of What Now and primary school, and then that crossroads that you got to later in life as you were in your lawyer life, and what that crossroads meant for you.
Yeah, oh gosh, it's like there's a lot to it. So if I start to trail off, feel free to bring me back home to focus. But, okay, where to begin? So I guess kia ora. I'm from Otatahi, Christchurch, and I'm like a 6th generation Cantabrian. I've lived here all my life, and I really do love this place. I think there's something so special about the access to papatuanuku, right? Nature. So in my childhood, I did a lot of skiing, did a lot of tramping, and I was lucky enough to come into this world with another person. That's my twin sister, Hannah. And I also have an older sister, Rachel, who lives in Sweden. And I had, I've got 2 parents as well, mum and dad, Mark and Irene, and they really fostered this sense of, working hard and access to nature. So Hannah and I think being a twin, you're naturally sort of benchmarked to this other person. So it's not that things were a competition, but it was always like, what twin could like get the attention of the person, like, because we had similar friends. So it's like, oh no, I want Georgina to talk to me. So there was always a bit of that. And I think that naturally got us to be quite confident people. It got us to, I guess you say be a bit goofy, but we love doing new things together because we do work well as a team. So how we got onto What Now was a funny story. We actually did competitive aerobics, and we were quite like to the point where we won nationals, and it was at high school. And then What Now were coming in to film one day, and there was a trio that were going to go to Worlds, but one of the people couldn't do their performance because she got glass in her foot or something. So they wanted just a few other people in the background. So Hannah and I were doing our routines, and the director at the time, his name's Kerry, and he's actually he's a good friend. Not at me at the time, we didn't know each other, but now we're friends because he's noticed us in the background, and he's like, you guys are really funny, like you're bouncing off each other. And so we just like would switch on this twin dynamic. And then they got us in front of the camera, and then they were like, if we ever need twins on the show, we'll let you know. And then they asked us to audition. Well, they actually asked us to do a live edition of our aerobics routine, which we didn't know at the time was a test to see if we could handle live television. And we loved it. And then they got us in for an audition, and then we kind of became like the twin teleops. And we did that for about 3 years, and it was so amazing spending that time with Hannah every Sunday. And especially because around that time we were doing very different things. I went off to uni, so I was at the University of Canterbury, and then Hannah decided to pursue nursing. So What Now was this thing that sort of bookended the week where we could come together and just have some fun. And the other thing I think what was so powerful about live television is it teaches you about the importance of being nimble. You got to be reactive. You got to work with the crowd. You got to be able to relate to different people. But the other thing is that live television teaches you how energy, it sort of diffuses through the screen. So in person, I might be giving level 10 energy, but it will come across as level 7 energy through the screen. So as a facilitator, you sort of have to overhype yourself to like go through to make sure the audience can feel it. And that's what live television teaches you. So all of these things helped me to where I am today. But so what had happened is I went ahead, was lucky enough to, you know, have this experience with live television, loved it. But that had nothing to do with my career path. That was just something fun that we did every Sunday. Definitely destroyed my social life because we had to like wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning. But it was a lot of fun. And so there I was pursuing law, a university student. And law was something that I did probably for all the wrong reasons. I did it because when I was younger, I was always described as quite a creative person. But somewhere along the way, that started to sound like a backhanded compliment. And I really wanted to prove to myself that I could, you know, I could be an intellect. I could handle a really, you know, something that people look up and say, oh, wow, like she's a lawyer. So I did it for all the wrong reasons. But I did work really hard, and I landed a summer clerk position, and then a grad role, and then a full-time role. But and then things changed again. But I'll pause to see if there's any questions before I deep dive into Bead and Proceed.
Oh, and that's basically where we were taking you, right? Was with that there's this crossroads that's coming. So you wait, guys, there's a crossroads coming, and it's an epic like here she is. And it's such a great, I think that's the greatest learning I think that's going to come from today, and we'll weave some more questions through that as well. But you know, we get put in these boxes really quickly from young ages, and we do rebel against those boxes. You did it in the most brilliant way of getting a law degree. A lot of people just go off the rails and go other places, you know, but you chose to do that. But the box didn't matter, right? And that's this crossroads that you come to, where once you know who you are, or when the pressure comes on or stress comes on, actually we flourish being who we are, not trying to be someone we're not. So tell us that next part that comes.
Yeah, that's so well articulated there, Daz. I think, you nailed it. Like, so what I found is, here I was as this lawyer, and there's a few other things that had happened that had sort of shaped me as a person. I guess one thing in particular was the earthquakes that happened. So I was really involved in the student volunteer army. And that really helped me connect to, you know, service leadership and active citizenship. So all of these things were sort of fostering me to want to, you know, to be a part of something that is bigger than me, but better because of me. That's not my quote. That's a quote from one of my friends, Dr. Lane Perry. So here I was trying to sort of put that into my law experience, right? And I quickly realized that I was not in that place that was going to give me that. And not only that, but I didn't feel like my natural strengths were able to be utilized. I felt like I wasn't adding any value to the firm. I felt like I wasn't adding value to the clients or to my life or to the world. So after a particularly bad day in court, I just wanted to reconnect with my creativity. I just wanted to put my frustration into something positive. So I made a necklace. And I just realized how beautiful that moment is when we connect back with those natural strengths that we've got. Because that's the thing, they will demand to be used. Like if you try and put your strengths in a box, they're going to come knocking. And because, you know, that's your authenticity, right? And so I'd been putting that away for a very long time. Always sort of saw it as child's play, didn't know how I would ever maximize or use my creativity as a career. So there I was painting away, and I just loved it. And then the next day, wore the necklace to work, got a lot of compliments. And I thought, maybe there's something to this. Like, you know, are we all sort of craving to reconnect with that raw creativity we used to do all the time as children? And then I was flipping through a Peppermint magazine, which is a magazine focusing on sustainability. And it must have been like a few days later, or even the next day. And I just saw all of these beautiful colors in this amazing grid. And I was like, what is this framework? And I read the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. And this was back in 2016. So the goals had only recently been adopted. And I thought, oh my goodness, what if? Because I read about it, I'm like, we've adopted these goals, no one knows about them. I'm like, how could I grow awareness around this framework? And I thought, what if these beads that we paint represent the 5 beads that we want to personally action. So suddenly these workshops of coming together to, paint beads or a key ring wasn't just a creative exercise. It was actually space for us to, ideate, brainstorm, create a safe space to have this, to have some tough discussions about these massive global issues. Because the Sustainable Development Goals, and I'll go by their acronym, which is SDGs. The SDGs, they address all areas of sustainability, economic, social, and environmental, things from climate action to gender equality, quality education, no poverty, life on land, life below water. And I just thought, what if I could finally tap into that creative strength that I've got and use it for something positive, because I hadn't been able to do that for a long time. And I didn't feel like law was the platform for me to lean into that. So then that is where Bead and Proceed sort of sparked.
Yeah.
And but I sat on the idea for a while, didn't think there was anything that special about it, because again, I thought it was such a simple idea, like there's no way that it would have impact, which is a whole nother lesson in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't afraid to share the idea with other people. And my friend happened to be at a networking event, and someone from the United Nations was there, and they said, your friend needs to pitch to us for funding. So I got some funding to help, put the kits together. And that was really the first sort of, I guess, the reassurance and from someone else that I could do this. And then the next step is I finally leave the law after having not a very good time with my mental health. And my mum and my now husband basically sat me down, had an intervention. And Luke, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, just said, look, where could you go if you put 100% into Bead and Proceed? And I hadn't realized that was the permission I'd been waiting to hear. And I think all people who live this, have that entrepreneurial spark in them, or where you feel like you're in a place where you're not authentically actioning, your strengths or your purpose, we can sit waiting for people to just tell us, like, go after it, chase your dreams. And so let this be me telling you now to go after it, because it's sometimes we're waiting for that permission. And then since then, fully launched Bead and Proceed in 2019, and it's been my full-time gig since. And I've worked with over 14,000 individuals and over 50 plus businesses and organizations, helping them connect to the SDGs personally and helping their businesses align to the goals as well. So that's Bead and Proceed.
That is outstanding. And so hopefully, if everyone's sitting close to their screens right now, so inspiring to hear pathways that you don't just have to stay on that one, right? We've just talked about it anyway. But if there's any child or adult who's watching this right now, who's been put in that creative box, but also told there's not a career path in that and you need to have something else, what's your advice to them?
Oh gosh, I mean, it kind of comes back to that sort of, saying before around understand what your strengths are, because when you can harness your strengths, when you can refine them, already you're good at them. So it's what could you do if you take them to the next level? So if you're a parent and you notice there's something that your child seems to gravitate to naturally, foster that. And I think that's the thing where I really commend my mum and dad. They could tell that I wasn't good at spelling, wasn't good at reading, wasn't good at maths. I had a speech impediment as well, which is really ironic because now I speak for a living. So there is a point where you do have to make sure your kids get to a point where they can function in society. But they were really good at letting me chase what I was naturally good at. So all through high school, I stopped math as soon as I could. I never got a drilling from my parents around how important maths is. They let me do that, and then I did all of the art subjects. So I would just say, understand who you are, figure out what your strengths are, really lean into them, and just remember that when you take your strengths, and ideally if you can use them for good as well, then you really are limitless. And I think that's the thing, being put into a box, for me at least, it took that process of me sort of separating myself from what I saw I was naturally good at, to get to a point where I could finally accept, actually, you know what, creativity is something that comes naturally to me. And now I'm on a mission to sort of de-fluffitize it, if that makes sense. You know, people really sort of see creativity and painting and making as child's play, which is crazy, because, you know, we used to do it all the time when we're younger. Then somewhere along the way, society says, put the paintbrush down, that's not a value. And we now have to solve problems behind a screen. And I'm not trying to say that technology is, you know, it has its place. I'm a huge fan of it. We're connecting through technology right now. But I think we're going to see major shifts where we're going to have to put more creativity into our lives. With growing digitalization and AI, we're going to have to actively make time for it, because we are creative beings. And that's a whole other story around different creativity types, which is a thing that I'm working on. There's a long answer, but yeah, I would say harness those strengths, recognize them, lean into them, and just see where they can take you.
Yeah. And this leads us really well into like the communities that you're a part of, because you are a part of some diverse communities. So it's not just in that art space. You obviously have your retro gym club, which is so cool. You can talk to us about that too. But from that to, and I'm going to read this one because I don't want to get it wrong, the World Economic Forum Global Shaper Christchurch Hub, which is epic, all of the impact that you're having in all those different areas. So all of those things, though, I imagine, are fueling your creativity, and they're fueling your purpose and the impact that you want to have. So talk to us about being part of those communities, and how some people could possibly get involved in those kind of different things if that's where their passion sits.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and again, it comes back to probably, you know, that the dynamic that Hannah and I had as twins, you know, always wanting to sort of like get involved and say yes to things. That's something that my dad really stressed about. He's like, you know, make sure you get involved, and you know, really, he encouraged me to do that extracurricular stuff. So I did a lot of that at school. So it was only natural that I started to do that through uni, and then that took me further to these other awesome organizations. So I was really involved in the Student Volunteer Army. I was president of it for about 2 years. What was sort of funny with that whole process is me and my boyfriend, now husband at the time, we both went for the role of president. And I never recommend any relationship to do that. It definitely tested us. But my point is that I started to say, you know, I was getting involved in these communities at uni. And again, it came back to that concept of, you know, being part of something that is bigger than you, but better because of you. I think being in these communities is really important to not only, you know, grow your own ecosystem and, you know, figure out who is in your constellation that you can get inspiration from and can expand you. So you've got these role models, so, you know, you can grow and stay curious. But it's also, you know, for me, it was about, I was doing a lot of local action and a lot of local work. And then the SDGs sort of gave me this perspective from a global scale. So then it was a natural step for me to sort of take this local action and then grow it globally. And again, that global action that looks like connections across, you know, across borders. So for example, I was really involved in the Student Volunteer Army, as mentioned, and through the whole rebuild process that, you know, I realized actually, and through the Student Volunteer Army, students are capable of so much. You know, we aren't just silt shovelers. We, you know, we have skills, we have, you know, we have resources and tools and minds that are really helpful for the community. And this was around the time through the rebuild, and decisions were being made about Ōtautahi Christchurch. And I thought there needs to be some youth representation around the table. So then someone shoulder tapped a bunch of us and said, look, would you guys like to run for the local community board? So I put my hand up. I had no idea what was involved. And then I just keep kind of like went further down the rabbit hole and realized I'm in too deep. I have to continue with this. So I did the whole campaign, and I was lucky enough to be elected on the Whenua Mai Māori community board, which was the name at the time. So I've been on the community board now for 4 terms. Each term's 3 years, and this term I'm chair. And again, it was around, you know, that having that local impact is wonderful, but it's also around having that global connection too. So then being a part of these communities helped me, you know, connect to others like the World Economic Forum Global Shapers community. So the hub, the Christchurch hub, was founded by Sam Johnson. which of course is the connection with the Student Volunteer Army. He founded SVA, and I'm good friends with Sam through the connection of SVA. So there was that, and then there's other memberships that I'm part of. And what I would say that anyone that is wanting to get involved is, feel free to message me and ask what's the process, what are these cool networks. One in particular that comes to mind that I absolutely love is the Asian New Zealand Leadership Network. So this is a network where people, I think it's between the ages of, I want to say, maybe 20 to 40.
Yeah.
It's a network where if you have a connection to Asia, whether you've been to Asia for your work or you've been to Asia through through travel, whatever your connection is, this is a network that wants to foster that. So it's about fostering the relationship between New Zealand and Asia. And it's an amazing network. So you just don't know what's out there. And I think it's about finding people who are a part of these networks and then ask them, what else are you a part of? Who else should I get in touch with? Who do you recommend I meet? Because you just never know where they will take you and where that journey will take you.
Great life lessons. So many you've just woven in there, but my favorite is like, who's in that constellation with you that can grow you? Because often we don't think about that our friends and our family are the people we spend the most time with. And so we want those people to be those people who are pushing us or asking deeper questions, and not just letting us sort of rest on our laurels or just cruise, but those people that if you want to be pushed, they'll do it, and they'll be those role models showing you can get up and you can do this stuff, and it's amazing. Come along, create your own pathway, but get inspired, and that's so cool. Talk to us a bit more about the Christchurch earthquakes, and like, I can't even imagine what that would have been like when it initially happened. So sort of walk us through that, and then becoming part of the Student Army and the difference that you guys have made in Ōtautahi.
Yeah, it's and I keep forgetting, like, gosh, how many years has it been? I want to say like 13 years maybe, or coming up to 13 years. It's been it's happened a long time ago, but it's still, anytime you feel an aftershock, like, it still takes you back and you get this rush of adrenaline. And I was really, there were some people who went through extreme hardship, losing homes, losing whānau, and just their whole communities just completely just changed. And I was lucky that yes, the family home was destroyed, but that was just superficial in the scheme of things. But I remember really clearly, it was day 2 of university, first year uni, and I'm in the James Height Library. So it's the tallest building on campus. And what was crazy is the books were still being put back on the shelf from the earthquake that took place in September. So a lot of the floors above us were still closed because they were still being tidied up from the first earthquake. And I just remember, the shaking started, and you could tell who was from Canterbury and who wasn't, because everyone who was from Canterbury got under the table, was reassuring other people to just hold on, to just, it's going to pass. And then we got taken out into the fields. And I just remember my friend, her name's called Minky, and I think her parents at the time owned Pico, and she got a message that just said Pico's destroyed. And it was this beautiful brick building. And that's when reality just started to settle in. I started to notice, like, you could hear helicopters and ambulances, and then the traffic started to pick up. And that's when it dawned on me and my sister, because Hannah was with me at the time, just how horrific the event was. So it was a really horrific time. And I think this is an interesting connection around creativity again. Sometimes in these really dark moments, we can see amazing things happen. Community comes together. We're having to make sense of this new chaos, and so we're having to put I guess creative spins on things. I do feel like sometimes in those darkest moments, that is where we can be our most creative selves, right? A beautiful metaphor is when you think about, when do we plant seeds? We plant them in the winter, right? So we can sow them and they can fully bloom through the summer. And I think there's something about the themes of, when any of us go through trauma, it can actually be a really creative time for us. Albeit we have to make sure that we have enough mental clarity and sort of attention to ensure that we can be creative. That's where you've got to look after your basic needs first. But I wanted to be involved in something positive at that time. So there was the Student Volunteer Army, which was formed by Sam and a few other people. And so I did do some shoveling. I remember I did it on Shortland Street, which is obviously a street you're going to remember. And I did it for a whole day, and it was a lot of fun. And then a few years later, what would it have been, 2013, I think, the Student Volunteer Army was going through some changes. And because, of course, there was no silt to shovel anymore, there was a big question mark around what's the relevance of the SVA. And so they wanted to do a refresher and have a whole new committee. And so myself and Luke and a few other people applied for different positions. And it was an amazing opportunity because we sort of got to reshape SVA. So it was Luke, although he didn't get president, he got head of marketing. And it was really important to him and to the committee for us to actually change the direction of the SVA and sort of symbolize that through rebranding. So we changed the SVA logo, which is the logo that's still used today, which is really cool. And we wanted to offer all sorts of different ways that students could volunteer. So we decided to really, I guess you'd say, lean into the Army theme, and we created different platoons where when people again, they could sign up to a platoon that aligned to their strengths. So whether it was baking, or whether you were a practical person, or whether you were about admin or organization. And we started to do events like Random Act of Kindness Week, Connect the Community. And they became annual events, which was really cool because I think with, we didn't want to just wait for a disaster to happen. No one wants to be in that position, but it made me realize just how students have so much to offer. So it's about giving students the opportunity, to be those service leaders and to lean into active citizenship.
Yeah. And we need that, not just in Christchurch, right? We want to try and we've been having a lot of discussions about that up here, is how do we activate, because back in the day, it was really just a given that you volunteered at your netball club, or you helped out at the rugby fields, or you were part of a group of readers, whatever that was. And that's very slowly, but also surely declining. And it's harder to get coaches. It's harder to get volunteers to go even to school camps and stuff. And it's about how do we start to re-foster and reprioritize being parts of our community in ways that are meaningful to us and that we can contribute and feel like we're useful, and and that it's not a waste of our time, because it never is when we're connecting with people and helping. But it's such that would be a fun offline conversation to have. And there's a lot to be done, and there's a lot to inspire around the country to really try and get everybody back to contributing and valuing that community sense of community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, when we caught up, I love this. You said that, you weren't a runner, and I was saying that I wasn't an academic, and you were the same, and I often have said for years, I'm not a reader. We kind of put ourselves into these boxes and we get this blocker, but you've had a serious mind shift around running, that you weren't a runner, and now you very much are. So talk to us about that sort of mindset shift and how important that's been for you.
Oh gosh, I still, even when you say like you're now a runner, I'm like,
who are you talking to?
But yes, I would say that this has been a really fascinating journey. And it comes back to the mantra I come back to is we can do hard things. Like whatever you think you can't do. And I think when it comes to like in physical stuff's a great example of this. I didn't see myself as being a runner. I was always someone that hated the idea of running, and those crazy people that would be like, oh, I can't wait to go for my run, or like I'm doing a marathon later on. I'm like, yuck. Why would you do that to yourself? And everyone's like, no, trust me. Like when you start running, like you won't get enough of it. And I never believed them. And then my twin sister and my mum signed us all up to do a half marathon. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this. And also I wanted to put some more fitness into my life, and running's great. You get outside in nature, it's free, so there were some benefits to it. Like I was willing to give it a go. And I just started doing, 3Ks, 5Ks, and then I'd be listening to a podcast. I think that's the other thing. It's the ritual of making time to just be with my thoughts, or to listen to one of my favorite podcasts. And it's just, it does feel meditative. I think that's what it is. And it's this ritual that I can count on. And I do look forward to it. So I do think that there was something powerful about working towards something. If you're ever going to start, something, when you're wanting to change your mindset around, I don't know, whether you want to be a swimmer or a runner, whatever it is, you do have to put in the time, you have to put in the practice. And then after a while, it just sort of becomes a foundation of your life and you start to get excited about it. I haven't done a half marathon since. I would love to do a marathon one day, and I do need to do a bit more training, but I can't imagine a world without it. And again, it just came back to that really important lesson that we can do hard things. And I strongly recommend that, challenge yourself to do something physical, because that feeling when you don't see yourself as being able to do something, and then you come out the other end, you've completed it, there's just a sense of, oh my gosh, like, what else could I achieve?
Yeah.
And I think there's something really powerful around the body connection as well. Like, I didn't think my body was capable of being a runner. And I don't know if this is unique to women as well, or anyone that has anyone that has a lack of a connection with their body, right? I think doing something physical where you're pushing your body to the extreme, it's this beautiful relationship where you realize, oh my gosh, my mind and my body, they're an ally. Like, we've got to work together because we're with each other for the rest of our lives. And just to know that, like, your body has your back. It can do such hard things. I think it's a beautiful mindset to, when you're working in the space of things like sustainability or other things that can be really hard mentally, to know that you can come out the other end and identify as being a runner when you didn't think you could be.
Yeah. There's a guy, James Clear, if you've heard of James Clear, he's got a book called Atomic Habits.
Yes, I love it.
Big fan. I talk about James often, but he was the one who made my brain click to the fact that it's not like I'm going to run a half marathon and we run and we train and then we do it and then we never run again. I want to be a runner, and how do I put that into my identity, and how do I build the habits around that so that then becomes part of what I do? Because it's not just that I'm doing it to do it, but I do it because I love it. So I need to actively, find the places in my life that it needs to go, and then hold myself accountable to get it done, so that, I'm not just a one-time runner and I did this one thing and I can tick it off, that I actually want that long-term for myself. And that's that huge mind and body thing, right? And I can say I want to go for a run, but then I can also let my brain go, you would rather sit down, Netflix and eat chocolate and, I don't know, not do that, or if I get all the things done today that I need to, then I'll go for a run. And you're going to do everything, so you're not going to go for a run. So it's all that kind of stuff. Like you said, having your own back and going, right, we're doing this. This is who we want to be, and we know that it feels good. So let's actually build this into who we are. It's so cool.
Yeah, I think what James talks about, how it's like, what would a runner do? How would a runner act? And so I had to say, well, because I love Atomic Habits, and I was like, they wouldn't miss a run. You don't miss a workout. Like, that's what someone. So yeah, I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, there's another guy, Robin Sharma. I could do this all day. There's another guy, Robin Sharma, and he's got the Everyday Hero Manifesto book. He's got a few, but his line that like pierced my soul was, you'd never break a promise to anyone else, so why would you break it for yourself? And it's that makes me now get up at 5 o'clock when my alarm goes off without excuses to get on my bike, because I know I need to do that. But how many times the alarm goes off and you're like, oh, and I can have an excuse. Oh, I went to bed a little bit late, so no, I won't do it today. Actually, no, like I wouldn't, if my friend was there waiting for me, I wouldn't let her down. So why am I doing that to myself? So yeah, I think all those little tiny messages, and Brett A's, you can do hard things. And David Galbraith's got great stuff as well around mindset and pushing yourself and going honey badger, being like, no, I'm going to be feral and I'm going to get this done, and give it, if I'm going to be here, then I'm going to give it everything I've got. I'm not going to go, I'm a bit tired today, so I'll cruise. Like, I'm going to dig deep and go for it. Now you're a prolific journaler. And I am a crazy stationery nerd. So when you said that, I got really excited because I just, when you get a new book or new pens, and it's just really cool. So talk to us about how you do your journaling and how that supports your creativity and mindset.
Yeah, well, I guess a little bit of a backstory is my granddad on my mum's side, so my mum's dad, he was incredibly like journaled all the time, to the point where I think some of his journals and diaries are in the museum, in the Christchurch Canterbury Museum, I think, because it was like, yeah, it was prolific. So it was a great record. So I don't know, maybe there's something genetic there as well.
Yeah.
But I disagree. If you want to be a journaler, you can be a journaler. It doesn't matter what the genes are. So I have always, I started journaling when I was in year 7, but it was just because I wanted to write. It wasn't about like, the mental well-being part of it. It was just, I want to write in a diary every day. And it was the discipline that I wanted to commit to, and just to see if I could do it. And then as I got a bit older, I realized, okay, this is a practice that actually is incredibly helpful for me. So I write in my journal every morning. It's something that I look forward to just as much as like my morning coffee. And there isn't any formula. There isn't any, I just sort of write what I'm feeling. It's just an opportunity for me to just be with my thoughts and to get centered and grounded. What I do, there are a few things that I quite like to do. So one in particular is, if I'm on my period, I like to write in red pen, because it's very good to look back and to see what are the trends that are there. Like, was I writing like an absolute, I don't know, mad woman? Oh, okay, this makes sense. I'm now in red pen. So I think it's just about connecting back with yourself. That's so important. And for me, that was about, connecting back to my cycle. And also just, picking up the trends along the way. And some of it is so rich. Like an example is, I got married this year. I keep saying that. My husband.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I brought out my journal of when I met Luke, and oh my God. But yeah, cute, but also like very unhinged. But I read some of it and I just was like, oh, these feelings, I connect back to them again. And it's just, I don't know, it's just beautiful. I think, again, it comes back to just getting to know yourself, because I think what's happening at the moment is we're surrounded by so much uncertainty. There's so much information out there. There's so much, so many things are trying to demand our attention away from us. And I think it's hard to know, like, where do we put our focus? Because globally there is this decision paralysis dilemma. And I know I can feel it. I know it's being felt worldwide. And it's no wonder with everything that's going on. But I think a way to sort of combat that is to get that sense of a direction. And I see the SDGs as being a great tool to help where you want to put your focus for good. But to know where you want to put your focus, you have to know yourself first. You have to know what your values are. Again, it comes back to knowing your strength. And I see journaling as being a beautiful way to connect with yourself. There's also, I've forgotten her name, but she wrote The Artist's Way. It's a book that came out long ago, but one of the practices that she encourages is a practice called morning pages, which is where you just write your stream of consciousness, no rhyme or reason, for like on 3 pages. And you just dedicate, I think, until you finish 3 A4 pages. And that's, again, another way to foster creativity, because it's just letting yourself express. Being with your thoughts is so important. You don't know what's going to come out until you make that time. And again, we don't make that time as much as we used to anymore. So we have to put it into our lives like we do with a run, right? I mean, it's not as if when the car was invented, we stopped running or walking because we had something to take us from A to B. Keep going because we know it's good for us. And I think that's what we're going to have to do with creativity. Like, yes, there's ChatGPT that can help us think creatively and generate ideas, but we can't stop ourselves from generating ideas as well. And I see journaling a great way to do that.
That is such a hit the nail on the head. Like, key message to people, right? Don't let one thing sort of take away the importance of all of the other things that are important to our lives. Now you talked about creating attention surplus. So talk to us about that and how journaling helps that, but also what is it, and talk to us about what that is.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring out the book because I see it right on my desk, and I also really struggle with his last name. Oh my gosh, Mihaly, and then that last name. We got that? Yeah.
Yep, I have to do a very, very long name that starts with the letter C.
Has a letter C. Anyway, he's great. So he wrote this book called Flow, and then his other book is called Creativity. And he talks about how creativity can't exist if there isn't a surplus of attention. And that makes so much sense, right? It's like we can't think creatively, we can't join the dots and notice themes and pick up symbols if we're in survival mode. So we need to make sure that we have space in our minds for us to actually access creativity. We've got to have a surplus of attention. So there are many different ways that we can do that, and they all link back to well-being exercises, like breath work.
Funny that.
Right? Breath work, and meditation, walks in nature, and again, taking time to physically be creative. There's been some studies that have highlighted, well, I think it was back in World War I, I believe, painting and clay making was actually prescribed to soldiers that had gone through the war and were suffering from PTSD, because it's about distraction therapy. It's about physically painting and making gets us into a zone where our attention is brought into the present. And again, we've got that surplus of attention. So I'm sort of on a journey to help people access that surplus of attention. And that's where I see Bead and Proceed that's why I was like, when I'm reading all of this, I'm like, oh, that's why this is such an effective tool, because we're able to access a different part of our minds because we're in a creative space. Creativity sparks creativity. And it's about actually getting out from our business as usual, and actually doing something different. Even, that shakes us up as well. And that gets us into a different mindset. So, does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to inspire a lot of people to go and investigate that further, if you know what I mean. It's that taste, like the SDGs. There's no easy way of explaining that. You need to go and do a deep dive and have a look at what's going on and what those 17 sustainable development goals are to understand and really, really make good choices around where you want to put that attention within those as well, and where you want to make a difference. We obviously want to make a difference in everything, and we can't. So how do we focus like our own spotlights on those things? So there's a lot here today where we've given lots of, like, not just surface, but lots of tidbits to go away and get inspired, and that's what it's about. Get inspired, get curious, and go find out. So my last question is it's going to round it all up for what we've talked about today, which is, when you made that decision to let go of law and move into Bead and Proceed, how critical was that decision for your well-being? And when you kind of reflect back on that now, like whether you were still a lawyer today or whether you'd taken that choice to change paths, how impactful and critical has that decision been for you?
Oh my gosh, it changed my life. Because I can't believe that what I get to do, going into businesses, helping them connect with creativity and work out where they want to make their sustainable impact with the SDG framework. It doesn't feel like work to me. It just feels, it's so rewarding. It's an honor and it's a privilege. And I think for a lot of people who are, if you're in a workplace and it's not fulfilling you, I mean, don't get me wrong, not every day is a great day, ups and downs. I think any entrepreneur will know that when you run your own business, it's the highest highs and the lowest lows, and it's a big roller coaster. So there'll be days where, it doesn't always feel that great. But I think if you're feeling, if it's getting to the point where for 2 weeks straight, you are, you're dreading work, you're, uncontrollably crying, you're just, life just has lost that enchantment around you. I think, you got to ask yourself, what is it? And I think for me, I remember there was a quote that I read where it was like expecting things to change and not doing anything about it is like turning up to the shore and expecting the plane to arrive. And I don't know why, but like that kind of got me. I was like, I'm so unhappy, and I've been unhappy for quite a while, but I'm not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And I think when I'm like, I keep coming to the shore waiting for the plane, but the plane's not going to pick me up because I've got to go to the airport. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, okay, I got to go to the airport. And like when you realize you got to go to the airport, like the pennies dropped, and that's the hardest part, to just be honest with yourself and be like, the plane's not arriving at this ocean, it's going to be at the airport. So yeah, it's been incredible. And I think many different layers to unpack here. Like I remember when, again, it came back to having amazing support systems around me, like my husband and my mum, who just gave me the permission to, you know, to see where could I take Bead and Proceed if I made it go full time. And I remember like telling my dad that I was going to leave the law, and I went out for coffee with him, and I'm like, Dad, I'm not going to do law anymore. And his response was, you're not going to do that bead thing, are you? And like, and it was like heartbreaking that, you know, my dad didn't really see the vision of where I could take Bead and Proceed. But I just was like, nope, like I've just got to, he doesn't understand it. And that's the other thing too, like you're going to meet different people on that journey. I call them like the 3 C's. You'll meet challengers who will help, you know, who'll make you question what you're doing, and maybe even force you to refine your idea. You'll meet cheerleaders that are going to be in your corner rooting for you, and then you'll meet champions who challengers, cheerleaders, and then champions. And champions are the people who will open doors for you. So always I'm so grateful for, you know, being around champions who have helped me connect to like their business and other people to be my own expanders, and again they form my constellation. But yeah, so I think what was the question again?
You've answered it well and truly. It was critical for your well-being to make that choice.
It was critical. Oh, that's where I was going. So like, I remember again, when you get put into a position where you're really unhappy, sometimes you have to just, and there's a door, right? I like to use this metaphor. There's a door and you want to reach for the door handle, but you can't because your hand's full of wood. Sometimes you just have to drop the wood, trust that, you know, now that your hands are free, it feels scary, it feels uncertain, you've lost that security, but you're never going to be able to reach for that door until sometimes you just let go of it and just see what happens. And I always remembered as well, I mean, because through this process I did a lot of poetry, did a lot of journaling to help me like come to, you know, connect to some of my thoughts. And I remember writing a poem that I felt like described where I was. And it was like, oh, what was it? It was something along the lines of sometimes you're a bird in the ocean and you're waiting to grow gills, but you don't realize that you've actually got wings to fly.
Yeah.
And sometimes there can be people who are working in an environment and they're like, if I just stay in it a bit longer, you know, I can evolve, my gills will show up, I can finally swim like all the other fish around me that seem to be enjoying their ecosystem. But actually you might be a bird and you've actually got wings and you don't belong in the ocean, you belong in the air with the other birds. So sometimes it's just recognizing, are you a bird in the ocean, or are you determined to grow gills and to get to be a fish?
It's like, yeah, I love the wood one as well, because so many of us fill our plates if we have our imaginary plate, and we keep it full so that we don't have to be aware of how unhappy we are, if that makes sense. And we stay in this busy rut and we're the hamster on the wheel, because if we stop, then we have to get honest with ourselves, and we don't actually want to do it a lot of the time, because that means change and it means big decisions and it means conversations that are hard. But right from the beginning of your conversation today, we can do hard things. We just have to make that choice and step forward into it. And that can be small, iterative. It doesn't have to be that we throw everything out the window and restart from scratch. There can be those iterative things that you can start pulling into your life, but it is about being brave enough to realize that you are unhappy and where the changes need to come, right?
I firmly believe as well that when you invest in yourself, like you back yourself completely, I just feel like you start to notice that other things start to fall into place. It's like, you know, and tell, you know, when you do make that leap, tell people that you've made that leap, because people are rooting for you. They want to see you succeed. They want a success story.
Yep.
And if they don't, like if they're not, then, you know, they don't belong in your orbit. So yeah.
They're not even part of the 3 C's. They're down there in the A's and B's. Get them out.
Yeah, get them out.
Go on. This has been epic, and I've got a few quick fire questions for you, if that's okay, to finish us off today. So if you could have dinner with any 3 people in the world, past or present, who would they be?
Okay, I might get some hate for this, but I don't care. Taylor Swift.
No hate from me. No hate from me.
Taylor Swift, I think she's a genius, and I just want to sit her down over dinner and ask some big questions about what the plans are, what have you learned, like irrespective of if you're a Taylor Swift fan or not. Should be interesting. Pericles would be another one. He was like kind of like the mayor of Athens back in 500 BC, and he's really what helped founded the Athenian Golden Age, and he has been a huge influence on my life in terms of leadership. I'd love to talk to him. And the last one's probably a personal one. I think it would be I think it's a toss-up with my grandparents, but I would say it would be I think it would be my grandma, Beulah. She's passed away, but I would want to have her at, sounds mean, but it makes sense. I'd want to have her at the dinner party before she got dementia. You know, so I could really know her. And I could ask her some big questions. Beulah, when she was around 65 and above.
Oh, beautiful. And I'm sure her and Taylor Swift would be like this, like that.
Oh my gosh. You know, can you imagine them in a room? Pericles would just be like, what is going on? He'd be like, he'd be like, I have no idea what.
Oh my God, I love it. Please write about this and invent what that scenario would look like, because I think it would be amazing. What is your favorite smell?
I love Daphne, the flower. In the winter, it's a beautiful, sweet smell. I love Daphne.
Nice. What song is currently on repeat on your playlist?
Well, obviously Taylor Swift. Probably at the moment it's Cruel Summer.
Yes. You can't not. That's knocked a few charts off. She's either second to top of most streamed song ever now with that song. That's gone.
I liked it when it came out, like back around like 2018, 2019. And I remember thinking, why is this not on the radio? And now it is.
Dominating. What are 3 of your favorite books?
Okay. Like fiction or non-fiction?
Anything you like.
I'm gonna go with fiction books because it's a whole other kettle of fish otherwise. I would say my 3 favorite, and I love fiction. I love a good romance as well. I would say Outlander. Outlander's really good. The Silent Patient, amazing thriller with such a good twist. Not recommend it enough. And then the last one, I don't know, only because it's on my mind, because I read it this year and I just binged it. I've got a book club and we all just like literally read it in a day. Verity, which is by Colleen Hoover, I think. Verity. And it's great. And it's sort of got a mixture of it's like a thriller, but it's kind of with a lot of twists in it, and sort of a romance, like not a romance. Anyway. Good.
Right. Consider this your new book list, team. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
And like, as in someone's given it to me, I haven't read it. Okay. I would say the best piece of advice has been when my friend told me what the process is that someone told her when you're making a tough decision. So if you're ever in a position where you don't know what choice to make, picture both outcomes of your decision on the front page of a newspaper. What's the snapshot? And when you read both titles, what one makes you more proud? And that's a great way, a great tool when you're stuck about how you should make a decision.
Yeah.
That's helped a lot in my life.
So nuggets. I like that. Where or what is your favorite hidden gem in New Zealand?
I can think of a few tramping ones, but I kind of want to keep them a secret. No, but I would I would have to say that my favorite place in the world, like in Aotearoa, is I love Golden Bay. And in Golden Bay and Takaka, so the Muscle Inn, definitely out there. Have had quite a few nights there. But there's this beautiful place, I think it's called Emerald Pool, and it's just this beautiful, like, enclosed waterhole. And I can't explain it. It just is this, it's about being in Takaka, it's about being there in the summer, and it's about just, I think it's called Emerald Pool, and it's amazing. And I highly recommend everyone to check out Golden Bay. If you haven't been, it's amazing.
I've just put it on my list. And what are some qualities you love about yourself?
Ooh, I like how open. I'd say I'm open-minded. I like that I'm open-minded. Like I'm always willing to I'm always willing to hold duality. You know, like I don't know how to explain that quality. Holding duality, holding space for different ideas, you know?
Yep.
And I like that I am creative. I think I like to say I'm a creative person. I've dealt with, me and creativity go way back. We've got a good relationship now. And I like, no one's ever asked me this. This is a good question. A quality that I like about myself. I think I quite like how nerdy I can get about certain things. Yeah, I guess you'd call that focus, maybe? Curiosity? Curious?
Probably curious, because then you deep dive on something's piqued your interest, you're like, I need to know.
I need to know more. Like I got really nerdy about Star Wars like 5 years ago. And now that features in my presentation with Bead and Proceed. And now I just love all of the different spin-off series and love it.
Priceless. I love that. Thank you so much, Bridget. This has been so awesome, and there's just so many great, not just tidbits, but information, but inspiration all at the same time for people to go and find what brings them joy and look at pathways that crop up and start thinking about how they make those decisions going forward. And I think even just that decision-making thing that you said right at the end, it comes right back into the front end of our conversation. If it's not sitting right, if you are finding yourself trying to be busy for busy's sake, actually find those moments, create those moments to breathe and go, is this the pathway I want to be doing for the next 20 years? And how am I feeling? Actually going, oh my goodness, I have been miserable for 2 weeks. That's not how we want. We want everybody to succeed. Like you said, we want people to thrive. We don't want anyone sinking. So have those conversations, and I think so much will come out of this. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And also, if anyone is curious about getting curious about their own creativity, I've recently created a creative process archetype quiz. So you can have fun doing that. Happy to send you guys the recipe so you've got it. And please get in touch if you ever have any questions or anything about the journey that you're on, and if there's anything I can do to help.
Wicked. Thank you so much, and thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you again next time. Ka kite.
Ka kite.